really excited about our first guest today. I am privileged and honored to have him on. He's the backdrop of our hockey lives, Scotty McKay, and I'm excited. So let's go to the Barb's Harley-Davidson Sports Hotline and welcome into the locker room legendary NHL announcer Mike Doc Emrick. Good morning, Mike.
Billy, how are you?
All right, Mike, we're doing well, and I gotta be honest with you. I feel I'm overwhelmed with joy that we're having an opportunity to speak with you as you just announced your retirement to a long, illustrious career.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you, too, and hello, Scott. I'm here on a brilliant fall day in the southeastern part of Michigan, very close to the Canadian border, on a 38-degree Saturday, and there is youth football going on. Little kids are playing here, and the stands are not full by any means, and everyone seems to be distancing. But at least there's the heartening aspect of the fact that there are little kids playing football, all helmeted up and having a good time.
See, Scooter, Doc couldn't pass up the opportunity of describing the action.
Right.
Hey, listen, Mike, before we get started, I had an opportunity to meet you several years ago at the Haddonfield Methodist. I think I met you with Bob McElwee. The McElwees are good friends of the family, and I left a message and let Bob know that I'd have you on today.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, that's quite a family, isn't it? When it comes to, I guess, I'm talking about football, there's a natural segue, isn't there, when you consider a longtime referee?
Mike, I got looking at some of the videos, and I read the beginning of your book, Off Mike, which is an outstanding read so far. But you know what? One thing that I noticed, your preparation for the hockey, describing the action. Tell our listeners, how much time did you spend during preparation getting ready to call a game?
Well, if you figure that a game, let's pretend it's, I don't know, pick anybody. Let's say it's the Rangers at Philadelphia, and the game's at 7 o'clock at night on a Wednesday, because we had Wednesday night rivalry games, and then later it was Wednesday night hockey. 7 o'clock on Wednesday, I would arrive in Philadelphia from out here in Michigan on Tuesday late afternoon. And it would probably be about 4 hours of preparation at night on Tuesday, because normally both teams did not play the night before. Occasionally, if they did, that would mean adjusting the statistics the next day. But normally they didn't. And normally, because of the cooperation of both teams, I would get the game notes the night before, so I could look up all of the various scoring streaks and things like that, statistical things that are important to some people and are important to announcers to at least have in mind, especially if there was a milestone game or a milestone goal or point that was approaching for either of the two players. Those kinds of things, it helps to get out of the way the night before, because they aren't going to change. Now, the next morning, the Flyers would skate at 10:30 and the Rangers at 11:30. And then you would have the chance to talk to individual players as much time as you had before they left the arena to go either home in the case of the Flyers or back to the hotel in the case of the Rangers. You also got a chance to talk with the coaches of the two teams, and that also occurred between 10:30 and 12:30. Then in the afternoon, you pulled some of the quotes that you got from those conversations together so that you had them in some kind of form that you could have ready in case there was an opportunity to use that information that night. That was your fresh information that was not on the internet and was something that people had not already read or heard by the time you got to the evening. Then the game was at 7 o'clock. Usually you had to start recording something around 5. You were in the booth at 5:30. You did the game, and then it was usually off the air by 9:30 or 9:45. So that was it. It probably entailed 4 hours the night before and 4 to 5 hours the afternoon of. But the preparation was the fun part for me, because you discovered things that you could share with the audience. And really, an announcer is the conduit between the players and coaches and the fans. And so that was the fun part for me.
And, of course, Mike, you did it over 3,750 times, 22 Stanley Cup finals, a bunch of Olympic games, I believe 19 or 19 Olympics, and you did it really well. But I want to take a step back because I don't want to make you feel any older than you are. But I remember I was a senior in high school when you first started with the Flyers in 1980.
Yeah, that would make you somewhat older today than you want to think, and certainly would make me that way. Yeah, I came to Philadelphia in 1980 to work for a company that was called Prism, which is not there anymore, but it was a sports and movie channel that, thinking that we're talking on Halloween, they would have all kinds of horror movies on today if there wasn't a sport to cover. And on a Saturday night in the fall, I'm sure there would have been either the 76ers or the Flyers if this were a normal year and Prism was still going. And maybe even, one of the local football teams might be playing today, too, that Prism would be involved in. But they had a blend at that time of Phillies, Flyers, 76ers, and then they would put all kinds of movies on, too. And at that time, there was something that you may remember called the Hammer House of Horror. And they were blood-curdling horror movies that they would put on, usually on Saturday night late. That was all a part of that. But that was 40 years ago, and it's fun to look back on those times now.
Right. Hey, Mike, it's Scotty. Super thrilled to have you on, and that was probably the greatest explanation I've ever heard of someone as their preparation for a game. Honestly, it was like, I don't think most people think you go there and you like Billy wings it all the time. He doesn't do any preparation. And I said, I got to say, I was with one of your friends last night, my best friend Brian Prop. We went to a cigar night up in Chester Valley, Pennsylvania, and when we were driving up together, I said to him, we were having you on the show today, and he like, as he was driving, he just looked over at me and said, wow. He said, one of the greatest guys ever in hockey, and what a great guy overall. And he says that's a great get for you guys. So he says hi. So
well, good. One of the great lines that the Flyers ever had was 26-14-17 with Ken Linsman and Paul Holmgren. And the one thing that happened back then was that Brian finished the games. Kenny would get in trouble. Paul would reach in and bail him out, and the two of them would get tossed out, but Brian would be around for the end.
That's a good thing. So one of the things I wanted to, I might even go to a little dark side here. I'm going to ask you something. Billy and I always try to figure out not the normal question, but the little bit of the off ones. One of my favorite announcers at the games was Dave Zinkoff for the Sixers, obviously. And, Julius Erving, his call was great. But when Dave passed away, Julius Erving read his eulogy. I want to know, who's the person that's going to read your eulogy? God forbid.
Oh, my goodness. I have no idea. I haven't thought that far ahead yet.
That is a dark one.
Gosh, I don't really know. I have a feeling it will probably be faith-based some way or other, which means it may very well be a friend, Shannon Kirshner, who is the pastor at Fourth Presbyterian in Chicago. Eddie Olczyk may be involved because he wrote the foreword to my book. I don't know. Those would be two nominees, but I'm not sure. We haven't fine-tuned that much yet, but I suppose maybe I should.
I wasn't Mike, Doc, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Well, I just wanted, like, someone that he has really admired over his career, someone that he would love to, step up and talk about him, so that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I guess that would Eddie would certainly be equipped to do that. We worked together for 14 years and had wonderful times together. So I guess off the top of my head, he would be one of the nominees. That's for sure.
Awesome.
We're talking with Mike Emrick, legendary announcer, Hall of Fame hockey announcer, and of course he just announced his retirement. Doc, I know that describing the game, you graduated from Bowling Green with a PhD, and that's how you got your nickname Doc in communications. But the game is it's a fast, spontaneous game. And I saw a piece that you did on I think HBO Sports with Brian Gumbel, and they said that you used over 150 different verbs to describe the action. Now, do you think of that ahead of time, or just something that happened?
No, it's all spontaneous, just like the game is. And it's all come really over a period of doing this for 47 years. I mean, you pick up new words along the way. And for example, when I was in graduate school, shortly before I wound up getting a chance to do this, I always wanted to, since I was 14, be a hockey announcer. And a man named Lyle Stieg, who was the announcer in Dayton and later did the Washington Capitals for a season, told me if you can come up with different ways of saying the many repetitive things that happen in hockey. For example, if you say dumped in from center ice every time in a game it's dumped in from center ice, which is a lot of times, you'll drive people nuts. So try to come up with different ways. Well, I never wrote them down, but when you wind up doing this for 47 years of play-by-play, just through the raw number of games, you develop different ways, and you wind up borrowing different ways from other announcers to use how to describe different things that happen. So it's not anything conspiratorial at all. It's just how it evolved over all of the long period of time. And I know that somebody sat down and counted those once. I'm flattered that they did. I hope they found other things more creative to do with their lives than that. But I'm glad that they did, because it does point out something that people do point out to me, and it gives me a chance to tell the story about how you don't really lay that out and try to follow a grid, because then it becomes artificial. It's how I talk. The dogs don't always understand me, but hopefully most people do.
We're talking with Mike Emrick, legendary NHL broadcaster, Hockey Hall of Fame broadcaster. And at the 2017 NHL All-Star Game, you had a roundtable with five of probably the greatest players ever. Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, Mario Lemieux, Sidney Crosby, and Jonathan Toews. I'm wondering, Doc, what are some of the highlights that now that you've stepped back away from the game, what are some of the highlights? And I know there's many of them, but if you could just give us a few, some of the highlights of your career.
Well, that was one of them, certainly. They were five of the all-time 100 greatest players that 63 or 64, I believe, wound up on stage the night before. All of them convened for the 100-year celebration of the NHL there in Los Angeles. So having that conversation with them would be a highlight. Having a similar roundtable the next year in Squaw Valley with the five members of the 1960 Olympic team, the one that is easily forgotten, which also won gold medals and overcame a lot of the great players in the world to do that, was another highlight, I'd say. And all of those games and the Olympics that you mentioned, I think probably one game that epitomized what I always felt was best about hockey would have been the gold medal game in 2010 between the U.S. and Canada, because it was of course, the last game of the tournament. 27 million people saw it. It was just before the closing ceremonies to the Olympics in Vancouver. And it was the two powerhouses of North America, U.S. and Canada. It was the ideal situation because you couldn't turn it off. It was the last minute of play, 1-goal game, goaltender pulled, and Zach Parise out of a net mouse scramble tied the game. Now it's going to overtime, and as Zamboni goes back and forth, you're wondering how long is this going to require, and how hard are they going to have to play, and who's going to win it? And one of the all-time favorites of Flyers fans, Sidney Crosby, scored in overtime for Canada, and Canada won it. And then afterward, before the medal ceremony, we had interviews with both Crosby and the losing goaltender Ryan Miller, and both of them spoke so eloquently about the competition and about the teams that had competed and about the game. And I felt that if we had to show 27 million people the best of our sport and the best athletes and the best words coming from athletes following the competition, we could not have done better, because not all 27 million were hockey fans, but maybe some became that after that game that day.
Absolutely. That's another great explanation. Mike, listen, Billy and I are both hockey guys. I'm still coach. I've been coaching hockey for 26 years, and we have those calls in moments in our life that we get goosebumps over. Obviously, Al Michaels, in 1980, the miracle call. Is there a special call that you had over your life that kind of still gives you like those kind of feelings that you had?
No, I don't really, because I didn't have any kind of signature call necessarily. Some things I remember more than others. I mean, it was not anything unusual that day. For example, I think it was something like Crosby scoring, and then the gold to Canada, and then what was most significant to me was not saying anything for a minute and a half, because you do have people that are professionals that handle cameras and are in our truck deciding on which shots to show, of the elation of the winner and the dejection of the loser and the handshakes and all of that. There's nothing to say because those pictures really tell a great story. So it's not so much what I said, but also I think also not saying anything. And one of the great things that's happened to me in the last 2 weeks since I announced the retirement occurred 2 days ago at 4:15 in the afternoon. For only the second time in my life, I got a phone call, and at the other end was Vin Scully. And he was calling to congratulate me on retiring and said a lot of nice things, including that he had not regretted one day retiring from his long, long stint of national games and being the voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers. But he and I discussed in a short time, probably 10 minutes that we were on together, he had to go because he was obligated to do an interview to talk about Carl Erskine, who had retired half a century ago from the Dodgers and was still living in Anderson, Indiana. And anyway, we talked about not saying anything as he let go for the longest time on the Kirk Gibson home run in 1988. So the conversation was a highlight for me. And also he reinforced to me the value of letting the crowd do all the work. And that's what happened that day.
That's awesome.
Well, Mike, I got to tell you, I wish we had more time. Obviously, our segments are short, but I wanted to get you on to thank you for all the memories and all the great calls. You are the backdrop, like I said, of my hockey life, the memories that I have. Your voice is a part of them, and we wish you much success and happiness in retirement. And we're going to miss you. And I just wanted to get you on and publicly thank you for your contribution to our lives.
Thank you so much. It was a joy to be a part of this. And one of the guys that I worked with on my doctoral dissertation and also gave me a lot of life lessons, and there's actually a chapter of the book that I've written devoted to him, was Ernie Harwell. And he said, a man is lucky or a woman is lucky when God gives them a job to do that they enjoy. And boy, did I ever enjoy this one for 47 years of professional hockey play-by-play. I thank you for having me on, and my best to both of you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, and I want to let everybody know about your book, Off Mike. It's a great read. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And even if you don't enjoy the book, just feel good about buying it because 100% of the proceeds go to hands-on care of animals. Thanks so much.
There
All right. See ya, Mike.
All right, there it is. Mike Emrick, I'm telling you, that just hearing Mike speak is unbelievable. That was Mike Emrick on the Barb's Harley Davidson Sports Hotline.